The more you chase her, the faster she disappears. But the moment you stop chasing and start detaching, something strange begins to happen. Suddenly, she starts noticing you again. Most men make the same mistake when a woman pulls away. The moment they feel distance, they panic, they send longer texts, ask more questions, try harder to explain themselves, and put in even more effort than before. In their mind, they believe they're fighting for the connection. They believe persistence proves love, loyalty, and commitment, but attraction doesn't work that way. When someone begins to pull away emotionally, chasing them doesn't create desire, it creates pressure, and pressure suffocates attraction. Every extra message, every attempt to fix the situation, every effort to convince her to stay sends a subtle signal that you are afraid of losing her, and fear is never attractive. Think about it from a psychological level. Attraction thrives in an environment where both people feel free. The moment one person begins clinging, the dynamic shifts. Instead of feeling curiosity and excitement, she begins to feel responsibility for your emotions. And responsibility kills romantic tension faster than almost anything else. So when a man chases, he unknowingly communicates something deeper, that his emotional state depends on her response. That his happiness depends on whether she texts back, that his confidence rises or falls depending on her attention. And the moment that happens, the balance disappears. This is why detachment becomes so powerful. Detachment doesn't mean you suddenly stop caring about someone. It means you stop chasing their validation. It means you regain control of your emotional world instead of placing it in someone else's hands. When you stop reacting to every change in her mood, when you stop trying to convince her to stay, when you stop filling every silence with another message, something shifts in the energy between you. The pressure disappears. Instead of feeling like she's being pulled toward you, she suddenly feels space, and space is where curiosity begins to grow. Without constant attention from you, she starts wondering what changed, why you're no longer chasing the way you used to, why your energy suddenly feels calm and composed instead of anxious. That curiosity creates emotional tension again, because the truth is, people rarely value what chases them endlessly, but they almost always notice when someone who once chased them decides to walk calmly in the other direction. Detachment restores your self respect. It shows that your time, attention, and emotional investment are valuable resources, not something you hand out endlessly just to keep someone interested. And when a man reaches that level of calm confidence, he stops trying to force attraction. He simply allows his absence to reveal his value. Most people hear the word detachment and immediately think it means becoming cold, distant, or emotionally unavailable. They imagine someone who suddenly stops caring, someone who shuts down their emotions and pretends the connection never mattered. But that's not what real detachment is. Real detachment is emotional control. It's the ability to care without losing yourself in the process. When a man is emotionally attached in an unhealthy way, his mood rises and falls based on someone else's behavior. If she texts quickly, he feels confident. If she takes hours to respond, he feels anxious. If she seems distant, his mind starts racing with questions and doubts. In that state, he's constantly reacting, constantly trying to fix things, constantly trying to regain a sense of certainty. And that reactive energy is exactly what destroys attraction. When you are emotionally reactive, you unknowingly communicate insecurity. Your actions begin to revolve around her reactions instead of your own purpose. Every conversation becomes a search for reassurance. Every silence feels like a threat, and the more you try to close that emotional gap, the wider it often becomes. Emotional detachment changes that entire dynamic. Instead of reacting instantly, you observe. Instead of assuming the worst, you remain calm. Instead of trying to control the outcome, you focus on controlling your own energy. That calmness alone creates a completely different presence. When someone interacts with a man who is emotionally centered, they feel it immediately. There's no pressure in the conversation, no subtle desperation behind his words. He's relaxed because his happiness doesn't depend on how the interaction unfolds. He enjoys the moment without trying to force a result. That kind of energy is incredibly attractive because it feels safe and strong at the same time. Think about the difference between someone who is constantly trying to hold on to you versus someone who is comfortable letting things unfold naturally. The first creates tension and pressure, the second creates freedom. And people are always more drawn to environments where they feel free rather than controlled. Detachment also communicates self respect. It shows that while you may value the connection, you value your own peace even more. You are not willing to sacrifice your emotional stability just to keep someone's attention. You care, but you are not dependent. That distinction is powerful because when someone realizes that you're not emotionally dependent on their validation, they begin to see you differently. Your attention becomes something meaningful rather than something expected. Your presence becomes a choice rather than a necessity, and that subtle shift changes the entire attraction dynamic. Instead of chasing reassurance, you become grounded in yourself. Instead of trying to pull someone closer, you allow them the space to move toward you on their own. And that calm emotional strength is the foundation of true attraction. Most men think attraction comes from chasing harder, texting more, explaining themselves better, or trying to prove their value. But the strange truth is that attraction often grows in the space you stop trying to control. When you begin to emotionally step back, something powerful happens in the dynamic. Suddenly, the pressure disappears, the energy changes, and that shift alone can make her start noticing you again in a completely different way. When you're constantly available, constantly responding instantly, constantly trying to fix every little distance between you and her, the mystery dies. Your energy becomes predictable. She knows exactly where you stand every second of the day. And while that might feel like loyalty to you, to her nervous system, it can feel like comfort without excitement. Human psychology doesn't chase what feels permanently secured, it chases what feels valuable and slightly out of reach. Detachment isn't about being cold or pretending you don't care. It's about releasing the need to control her feelings. It's about standing strong in your own life so that her reactions no longer dictate your emotional state. The moment a man stops reacting to every small shift in a woman's behavior, he becomes emotionally grounded. And grounded energy is incredibly attractive. Think about the last time she pulled away a little. Maybe she took longer to reply. Maybe she canceled a plan. Maybe she seemed distracted. Most men instantly panic and try to repair the situation. They double text. They ask what's wrong. They try to pull her attention back. But ironically, that reaction communicates insecurity. It tells her that your emotional balance depends on her validation. Now imagine the opposite reaction. She pulls back slightly and you simply continue living your life. You're focused on your work, your purpose, your hobbies, your friends. You're not ignoring her, but you're also not chasing reassurance. Your mood doesn't change. Your confidence stays steady. That calm detachment triggers curiosity because now she begins to wonder something she didn't wonder before. Why isn't he reacting? Mystery returns to the dynamic, and mystery fuels attraction. Women are naturally drawn toward men who appear emotionally centered and independent. When she senses that you're not trying to control the outcome, that you're not desperate for her approval, it flips a psychological switch. Instead of feeling like the prize that must be chased, she begins to see you as someone whose attention actually has value. This is why detachment works. It restores balance. You're no longer trying to force attraction. You're allowing space for it to breathe again. And in that space, something interesting begins to happen. Her curiosity grows. Her investment slowly increases. She may start initiating conversations again. She might ask what you've been up to. She might even test your attention to see if you'll chase the way you used to. But this time, your energy stays calm. You're still kind. You're still confident. But you're no longer trying to prove yourself because the moment you truly detach from the outcome is the moment your presence becomes powerful again. And that's when attraction quietly starts rebuilding itself. Here's something most men don't understand when they start practicing detachment. The moment you pull your energy back, she will often test you, not because she hates you, not because she wants to push you away, but because she's trying to understand if the change in you is real or just another tactic to get her attention. When a woman senses that your behavior has shifted, her mind immediately becomes curious. If you were once the guy who texted first every day, who always asked where things were going, who constantly tried to reassure the connection, and suddenly you become calm, centered, and focused on your own life, she will notice. And when she notices, the next step is almost always a test. These tests can come in many forms. Sometimes she may take longer to reply to your messages to see if you panic. Sometimes she may bring up other men in conversation to see if you get jealous. Sometimes she may act distant for a few days just to see if you start chasing again. To most men, these moments feel confusing and frustrating. But to someone who understands attraction dynamics, they are actually a good sign. A test simply means she's paying attention. She's watching to see if your confidence is stable or if it collapses the moment she applies pressure. Think about it this way: confidence that disappears during stress isn't real confidence, it's performance. And women are incredibly good at detecting the difference between authentic emotional strength and temporary behavior. If you fail the test, if you become reactive, defensive, jealous, or needy, then she learns that nothing about you has truly changed. The detachment was just an act. And the moment she senses that, attraction begins to fade again because the mystery disappears. But when you pass the test, something powerful happens. Passing the test doesn't mean arguing with her or proving her wrong. It simply means staying emotionally steady. If she takes longer to reply, you continue living your life without overthinking it. If she mentions another guy, you respond with calm indifference instead of insecurity. If she pulls away slightly, you don't chase, you allow space. Your energy stays relaxed, confident, and unbothered. And that response creates a very different emotional experience for her. Instead of seeing a man who is trying to control her reactions, she sees a man who is comfortable with uncertainty, a man who doesn't panic when the dynamic shifts, A man whose emotional state is rooted in his own life rather than her approval, that kind of emotional stability is rare, and rarity increases attraction because now she begins to feel something she didn't feel before: respect. Respect for the fact that you are not easily shaken, respect for the fact that you're not competing for validation, respect for the quiet confidence that comes from someone who knows his worth without needing to constantly prove it. And once respect begins to grow, attraction often follows close behind. So when these tests appear, don't see them as problems, see them as opportunities to demonstrate the new energy you've developed. Stay calm, stay focused on your life, stay detached from the outcome. Because the moment she realizes your confidence is real, the entire dynamic begins to change. Most men believe detachment is something you perform for a few days to make someone miss you. They treat it like a temporary strategy: pull back, stay silent, act mysterious, and eventually she'll come running back. But the truth is, real detachment isn't a tactic you switch on and off. It's a shift in how you live your life. And when that shift becomes real, it changes the entire energy of how people respond to you. When you first start practicing detachment, it can feel uncomfortable. Your mind wants to check your phone. It wants to analyze every message. It wants to ask, why hasn't she replied yet? Or that urge to chase reassurance is natural, but it's also the very habit that destroys attraction, because when your focus is locked on her reactions, you slowly lose connection with your own direction. True detachment begins the moment your life becomes bigger than the relationship you're trying to protect. When you start investing your energy into your purpose, your health, your work, your friendships, and the things that make you feel alive, something powerful happens. You stop waiting, you stop monitoring every interaction. Your attention shifts from how do I keep her interested to how do I keep building the life I want. And that shift changes your presence. Suddenly, your conversations become lighter because you're not trying to control the outcome. Your energy becomes calmer because you're not afraid of losing her. You're not constantly checking for signs of validation. And because of that, you naturally become more attractive. Women are extremely sensitive to emotional energy. They can feel when a man is clinging versus when a man is centered in his own life. When you are detached in a healthy way, your attention is no longer demanding anything from her. You enjoy her presence, but you don't depend on it to feel complete. That independence creates intrigue because now she starts to sense that your happiness isn't tied to her reactions. She begins to wonder what's happening in your world. What are you doing when you're not texting? What are you building? Who are you becoming? Curiosity grows when availability becomes balanced with mystery. But here's the important part: you're not doing this to manipulate her emotions. You're doing it because your life genuinely deserves your focus. You're building a mindset where your value isn't measured by someone's attention. You're strengthening the part of you that moves forward regardless of who stays or leaves. And ironically, that's the very energy that makes people want to stay, because confidence that comes from purpose is magnetic. When a woman sees that your world doesn't revolve around chasing validation, she experiences you differently. Your time feels more valuable, your attention feels more meaningful. And when you choose to share moments with her, it feels like a choice, not a need. That's the moment detachment stops being a technique and becomes part of who you are. And when that energy becomes natural, attraction no longer needs to be forced. There comes a moment in every man's journey where he realizes that the real power of detachment was never about getting someone back. In the beginning, many people practice detachment with a hidden expectation. They think, if I step back, she'll start missing me. If I stop texting, she'll come chasing. And sometimes that actually happens. But the deepest transformation occurs when you reach the point where her reaction is no longer the reason you're doing it. Because real detachment is not silence, it's not distance, it's emotional independence. It's the moment you stop measuring your value based on someone else's attention. It's when you no longer feel the urge to prove yourself, convince someone to stay, or fight for a place in someone's life where you're not naturally appreciated. Instead, you start living with a quiet certainty that the right people will move closer to you without force. And that shift changes the entire dynamic of how relationships unfold. When you truly detach, you stop chasing explanations, you stop overanalyzing delayed replies, mixed signals, or emotional inconsistency. You begin to understand that clarity always reveals itself through actions. If someone values your presence, they will show it. If they don't, you won't waste your energy trying to decode their silence. This mindset protects your peace because instead of reacting emotionally to every small change in someone's behavior, you remain steady. You keep building your life, moving forward, focusing on growth and staying connected to your purpose. Your attention goes toward what you can control: your habits, your goals, your mindset, your future. And when a man operates from that place, something interesting happens. His energy becomes rare. Most people in the world operate from a place of neediness, fear of loss, and constant validation seeking. They hold on tightly because they believe their happiness depends on another person's presence. But when someone encounters a man who is calm, grounded, and fully comfortable, whether someone stays or leaves, that presence feels different. It feels strong, it feels stable, it feels magnetic, not because he's playing games, but because he's no longer desperate for approval. His life continues moving forward regardless of who participates in it. And that kind of emotional stability is incredibly attractive because it signals maturity and inner strength. Ironically, this is often the point where people who once pulled away start to notice you again. They sense the shift in your energy. The pressure is gone, the neediness is gone. And what's left is a man who values himself enough to walk his path without waiting for permission. But by that time, something inside you has already changed. You're no longer waiting for them to return because you've discovered that the real reward of detachment was never someone coming back. The real reward was becoming someone who no longer needs them to